Okay, welcome back. I'm now going to continue my 32 and 32 with the defending Super Bowl champions and the Kansas City Chiefs. So they're now coming off two Super Bowl championships in the last 4 years. They obviously beat the San Francisco 49ers, and I believe it was Super Bowl 54 back in the 2019-20 season. And now they've just defeated the Philadelphia Eagles in this past Super Bowl, which would have been, I believe, Super Bowl 58, if I'm not mistaken, 7-6. 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, I had to do a little bit of math there. Again, when you have Patrick Mahomes at the helm, he could play for honestly any team in the entire league, and he could turn them into Super Bowl contenders just because he's so versatile. Not only can he throw the ball, but he can juke you out, and he just has freakish talent that he could be literally jumping in the air, sideways, head turn, but yet he still manages to find a way to find an open receiver or a tight end. So I got to say, the talent that he has is just unspeakable, and I can't praise him enough. And that's coming from a Broncos fan, so I shouldn't be so cheerful or whatever the case may be. But there's no doubt you can't deny his greatness. For me, and this is just my personal opinion, it feels like the Chiefs are basically like the new Patriots, where you had Belichick and Brady who dominated the AFC and won so many championships together. Now you're getting Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, which are, like I said, they're turning into the new Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, where they're just so damn dominant. And then when you have a tight end like Kelsey, you can almost compare him to like Gronkowski. So it's just eerie about how similar these two teams and these two dynasties, if you want to call them that, have turned out to be. Because honestly, if Kansas City wins at least one or two more championships, there's no doubt they're a dynasty. Yeah, they've won 2 out of 3 potential Super Bowls, but they're contenders year in and year out. There's no fluke as to why they have 2 Super Bowls, like I said, within the last 4 seasons. So they finished last year with a 14-3 record. Going into the end of the season, they went on a 5-game winning streak, and honestly, they needed to get that 5-game winning streak just to claim the top seed in the AFC, as the Bills had 13 wins and the Bengals had 12 wins, respectively. So had they lost one of those 2 games, then they easily could have found themselves in second place, and who knows how the playoffs would have turned out if the Chiefs didn't have home field advantage throughout. So they played 8 games at home, and they played 8 games on the road. Sorry, 9 games on the road, I do apologize, and they were dominant whether it was home or away. So at home, they finished with a 7-1 record, and on the road, they finished with a 7-2 record. So the fact that they only lost 2 games on the road is astonishing. And when it came to their division play, they swept their division. It was 6-0. It wasn't even a contest. Wasn't even close. Like I said, they won the AFC West now. Well, they won it in the 2016-17 season, so 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 7 years in a row. And obviously they had Alex Smith at the beginning of that, and then now they have Patrick Mahomes for the past 5 seasons, I do believe. So, they're not going anywhere as far as I'm concerned for contention. They're just that dominant. I wish I could speak more negatively about the team, but they're just so good. It's scary. And it doesn't matter. And it just goes to show you can have like a B-rated receiver, if that makes any sense. You don't have to have like an A+. You don't have to have like an outstanding guy, because obviously they lost Tyreek Hill last offseason and when he got traded to the Miami Dolphins, and yet Patrick Mahomes can still find anyone. Like, you could honestly have either a rookie receiver or a receiver who's played 15 years, and he's still going to find a way to find you, if that makes any sense at all. He's just that good, and like his quarterback IQ is just out of this world. So I'll take a look at his stats along with his fellow teammates, and I'll make my predictions for this upcoming season. So he was the only guy who had any attempts at throwing. Chad Henne was the backup quarterback. He had 2 attempts to pass, but both were incompletion, so he had 0 yards and 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions to his name. So Patrick Mahomes finished last season with 5,250 yards. He had 435 completions out of 648 attempts, 41 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, which is amazing. At the rushing stats, Isaiah Pacheco, He had 170 rushing attempts for 830 yards and 5 touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes ran the ball 61 times for 358 yards and 4 touchdowns. Melvin Gordon, who I didn't even know was on the team because he was obviously a member of the Broncos, but then they let him go. So the Chiefs must have signed him somehow, some way late in the season, because I'll never forget seeing that picture on social media with him and his ring. And my first thought was, when the hell did he join the Chiefs? It must have been like a late season, or maybe he joined them in the postseason. I have no recollection of him coming back in the NFL after the Broncos dropped him. So he finished with a total of 90 carries for 318 yards and 2 touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 71 carries for 302 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jerick McKinnon had 72 rushes for 291 yards and a touchdown. Kadarius Toney had 7 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown. Ronald Jones II had 17 carries for 70 yards and 1 touchdown. Mecole Hardman had 4 carries for 31 yards and 2 touchdowns. Skyy Moore had 3 carries for 24 yards. Michael Burton, the fullback, had 5 carries for 7 yards. Travis Kelce had 2 carries for 5. And Noah Gray made the most of it with 1 carry, 1 yard, and 1 touchdown. That's pretty darn good. So to look at the receiving side of things, Travis Kelce, no surprise, led the team in receptions. He had 110 catches, 1,338 yards, and 12 touchdowns. Juju Smith-Schuster had 78 catches for 933 yards and 3 touchdowns. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who I believe came over from the Packers, had 42 catches for 687 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jerick McKinnon had 56 receptions for 512 yards and 9 touchdowns for a halfback. That's unbelievable. Noah Gray had 28 catches for 299 yards and a touchdown. Mecole Hardman had 25 receptions for 297 yards and 4 touchdowns. Skyy Moore had 22 catches for 250 yards. Melvin Gordon had 25 catches for 223 yards. Kadarius Toney had 16 catches for 171 yards and 2 scores. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 17 receptions for 151 yards and 3 touchdowns. Isaiah Pacheco had 13 receptions for 130 yards. Jody Forston had 9 receptions for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kendall Blanton had 2 receptions for 35 yards. Ronald Jones had 1 catch for 22. Blake Bell had 2 catches for 20 yards. Emir Smith-Marset had 1 reception for 15 yards. And Michael Burton had 2 catches for 11 yards. So I'll just go over the additions and subtractions for this Kansas City Chiefs team. And then, like I said, I'll make my prediction for this upcoming year. So I'll just make sure I get this back into focus. Hopefully it's not too terribly blurry. Here we go. Okay, so a few subtractions from the team. Orlando Brown Jr., an offensive tackle. He is now signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. Frank Clark, the defensive end. This kind of took me by surprise. He left Kansas City to join the Denver Broncos, so hopefully he can have as much luck with the Broncos as he did with the Chiefs. And Juju Smith-Schuster has left Kansas City to try to take his talents to the East Coast and join the New England Patriots. 2 additions on the team, one on the offensive side and one on the defensive side of things. Jawan Taylor, an offensive tackle. And I'm just going to pull up his stats and see where he played before joining the Chiefs. So he spent the last 4 years with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, they had their little run last year in the postseason. And the other member was, oh my goodness, I just exited the app. I apologize, so just bear with me here. And then the other addition was Charles, if I'm going to pronounce his name correctly, Omenihu on the defensive end. And we'll take a look and see where he played before joining Kansas City. So he spent the last 2 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers, so obviously he was part of the team that went to the NFC Championship just a season ago, and now he's flipped sides to join the AFC squad. So my prediction going into this season, I believe they're probably going to be just as dominant as they have been for the last several years. Like I said, as long as you have Patrick Mahomes on your team, you're going to be a contender year in and year out. So if I had to make my prediction, I would not be surprised at all if they made yet another Super Bowl appearance. It would take a major upset, honestly, for them to not get to that point. For sure, conference champions, like I said, they should be Super Bowl contenders. I'd be very shocked if they did not finish first in the AFC again. I'd be very shocked if they got bounced in the divisional round. I'd be very shocked if they got bounced in the conference championship. And if they made it to the Super Bowl and lost, I'd be again very shocked. This coming from a Broncos fan, like I said, I would love to see my team succeed over them, but I know that Kansas City is just that talented, both on the offensive side and on the defensive side of things. So I can't praise them enough. Like I said, I truly believe that they are the team to beat, no doubt, in the AFC and potential Super Bowl if they are able to get there. As always, thank you very much for tuning in, and until next time, take care.